Our minds should be on home, amen? When you, how many of us have said when you go on vacation, you can't wait to go, and then when you get there, what? You can't wait to get home. And, well, that's my home, even though I've never been there. I've got a longing to go. And there's just nothing about this world that is attractive to me anymore, or that I'd want to stick around for. So I've got a few scriptures. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. Paul says, "Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly. So fight I, not as one that beateth the air." Right? So shadow boxing. You know. He's saying, I'm not fighting to play around. I'm fighting to win. I'm running to win. And he says in verse 27, "But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway." Paul is describing this faith that we have partaken in, the salvation that we have accepted as a gift, as a race that we are running. And as he describes that there may be many that start off, but only one winner. I always said I never had a problem with participation something, right? Participation paper or participation ribbon, as long as the winner gets a trophy, right? And if you're going to give participation trophies, then give the winner a car. Right? I don't care if they give them all something for participating. I just want to know that the winner got something that shows I won. And this isn't a race. Understand that what Paul is describing is not a race against one another. Although I feel like this at times. That the old saying is that there are those that have outstripped us in the race. And my grandma is getting ready to win. She's going to get there before any of us. So we think. The fact is we don't know. There may be somebody here tonight that doesn't make it till morning. But the fact is it looks like she's going to get there ahead of us. But this is a race, not that we're in competition with one another, but a race that we are in competition with, amen, against ourselves and against the enemy. For only it is within us and our own flesh that can knock us off course. There's nothing that you can do that can stop me from completing and winning this race. And there's nothing I can do. Now, I may do something to disappoint you. I may do something to discourage you. But the fact is, if the actions of someone else causes you to stumble to the place that you lose that relationship, then the fact is it's still your responsibility to say, I'm going to run with courage and faith no matter what anybody else says. And all we've got to do is look in this word and find out what those early Christians and what those apostles went through. And we can search through history and find how many of them lost their lives. And those that were burned alive, those that were crucified upside down or beheaded. Listen, they weren't doing it for a worldwide religion because it hadn't reached worldwide yet. But they had a hold of something that they knew was true and faithful. And whether it meant they were dragged through the street until they were dead or hung upside down, they said, I've got a hold of something and I'm going to finish this journey. I'm going to win this race. We all run, but we're running to win. Not only are we running to win, but we're fighting to win. Paul says, he said, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. He said, I'm not out here to play games, and I'm not out here to fool around. I don't know if any of you ever played box when you were a kid or played fight. My brother and I would play wrestle. And so, growing up, we were Ohio State fans and Bengals fans. That's been a life of misery. And we were Cincinnati Reds fans above all other things. We liked the Celtics and we liked but man, There was a few years where even those things, I hate to admit it, JM, that very few things rivaled the WWF in our house. I mean, we got as excited over what's the big WrestleMania? See, no, I'm old enough to remember the first WrestleMania, and the second, and listen, we didn't have cable. We barely had like 4 channels, and I don't even know if they had such a thing, if it was called pay-per-view, but you had to have some kind of cable, I'm sure, to get it. We didn't get that. We would wait until the VHS tape was released at the video store and rent WrestleMania. I mean, it was like it never happened, even though we already knew who won. Of course, they knew who won before it ever started. And we would watch that, and so we would play wrestle. My brother, I eventually outgrew him, but when we were young, he was almost 4 years older than me. He was kind of tall for his age, and I was kind of short. And so when we would wrestle, the rule was he had to get on his knees. And I would get back and take a full-on run to jump on him. I'd jump off the turnbuckle, or some call it the arm of the couch. Same thing. And we would wrestle, and my dad would always say the same thing. Anybody want to guess what Dad would say? Boys, it's going to turn into a fight. We'd say, no, Dad, we're just playing. We'd do all the moves, and my brother would pick me clear up the air and slam me down. I'd just laugh. It was so fun. We'd grab a pillow like the metal chairs. We'd hit each other with the pillow. We went through all of that. Dad'd say, boys, it's going to end up in a fight. No, Dad, we're just playing. He'd say, it's going to end in a fight and you're both going to be in trouble. No, Dad. But and I don't want to take the blame, but before long, somebody would hit the other one just a little harder than they should have, and then the other would get mad. And what would happen? It'd end up in a fight. So before long, the shadow fighting, the fake wrestling turned into real fighting. And I want to tell you, there's a difference when you are playing around with what's on the inside and the fire that you feel when you're playing games and when you realize I'm in a real fight. And listen, it is time that we get angry with the enemy, that we get angry with sin, that we get angry with the things that are destroying people's lives and destroying homes and destroying souls, that we stop playing around. We're not shadow boxing. We're not play wrestling. This isn't fun and games. It is for eternity. It is for souls. It's for the souls of the people in the church. It's for the souls of our children. It's for the souls of our neighbors. It's time we get a fire lit inside of us that says, I'm not playing around, but I'm here to win. I want to fight. He said, but in order to do that, now this is not fun preaching here. I keep under my body and bring it into subjection. Let's say by any means. Now what's the correlation he's making? He's talking about athletes, runners, fighters. The best runners and the best fighters are in shape. They don't just eat anything they want. That's why I'm not a runner or a fighter. They just don't eat anything they want. They make sure that they eat the things that they should. And they train and they're disciplined. And I can get behind spiritual discipline. I used to get behind physical discipline. But, I just figured, I got a pretty wife and we've been married a long time, so why do I have to worry about it anymore? Don't tell her I said that. But we, spiritually speaking, have to keep our bodies under subjection. We have to keep that carnal part of us, whatever it is, the battles and the spiritual battles and the physical things that we fight. Some have this battle and other people look and say, I don't understand why they struggle with that. And then that same person has a battle that the first person says, I don't understand why they struggle with that. I don't have any problems with that at all. The fact is, it doesn't matter what the thing is. We have to understand that it can knock us off course if we're not careful. And we don't keep those things in our lives under subjection. And Paul said the reason why this is important is because if I don't keep those things where they ought to be, then when I preach the gospel, I myself might be a castaway. Every preacher fights those that are in leadership or teaching, and there are times, and it's not always easy, and you still got a job to do, but you begin to ask yourself the question, and you begin to check yourself. Is this right between me and God? And then am I where I ought to be? And this and that. It's important to do. It's not always easy. And you can't just always get up front and tell everybody every problem you have and everything. And it's not that you're trying to pretend or play games. You want people to concentrate on the Word. But the fact is, none of us that get up here and preach are perfect. None of us that get up here, no matter how good of a preacher, how good of a sermon or an outline. Now, every day of life got things together. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we err. Sometimes we fall. But what is important is not about when we fall. It is about what we do when we fall. How do we handle it? How do we come back to God? How do we seek restoration? Are we determined that, I have fallen. I've fallen short of the grace of God. But I'm determined to make it because I know God is able to restore. I've got to move on. My second scripture is found in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6. I read this to Grandma last night. It says, "For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. We've already covered this. I have what? I've fought a good fight. I have finished my course." That's what I told her last night. "And I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing." Paul was faithful to God. It wasn't necessarily that he had lived to a really old age where he was dying of natural causes. It was that he knew it would not be long until his life would be taken for the cause of Christ. He recognized the predicament that he was in. He recognized that death was imminent. And it is interesting to me of the words that he chose to use, "For I am now ready to be offered." He knew that he was dying for the cause of Christ. I don't want to die, period. But I'd like to just die of old age someday in my sleep. Anybody else, if you've got your wish, that's just how you'd rather go? I don't want to suffer. I don't like pain. I don't want to be sick. I don't know. I don't want to die in some tragic way or some scary way. I hope to live to a ripe old age, at least where I'm old enough that Noah can financially take care of me and pay for all my bills. That's where I'd like to get. I don't know what life will hold. But one of these days, I want to be able to look back, if I have time to reflect, Nick, and say these words. That I've fought a good fight. I've finished my course. And I have kept the faith. He doesn't say, and I know that we can look at the different language, and that I have fought a good fight and I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Each one of us have our own races to run. My race may be a little different than yours. The length of race may change from this person to this person. My brother didn't get to live very long, and I want to tell you, and you all know this. You've been through it in your own families. There's a whole lot different feeling when my grandpa was 92 and he passed away. Grandma will be, if she lives, she'll be 90 in just a couple of weeks. It's a whole lot different feeling than my brother at 42. His race wasn't very long. But here's what's important. David, is not the length of the race. It's that we finished it. It's that we have ran our race, that we have finished the course that was laid out for us. It was determined by God how long we would live. It was determined by God what our lives would be like and some of the battles that would come along. What is important, that no matter how long or how curvy it may be, is that through it all, I have kept the faith. Friend, I want to encourage you tonight. Keep the faith. I don't mean to keep going back to this. I hope you indulge me. But that's one of the things Bill kept saying last night. Or the night before, she just kept saying, everybody said, you're going to face hard times. You're going to face discouragement. But look up. She said, just keep looking up. and things will work out, and God will encourage you. Friend, keep the faith. No matter what we face in the United States of America, no matter what evil betides, no matter how elections go, no matter how Washington goes, my salvation does not reside in the White House or the Capitol building or anywhere else. The King that I serve is in charge of all things. My faith is in Him, and I'm going to keep it. And then I want to turn to Hebrews chapter 12 and leave you with this. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us. And let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before. I've never preached on this scripture and point this out. This scripture makes no sense to me. How could he find joy in what was about to happen? But it says, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. It means we accepting salvation, us coming to Christ. And someday when we will enter the gates of heaven, all of that brings him joy. Think of that. We can bring God, we can bring the Son of God joy. And because of that joy, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. I'll draw your attention back to the verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we are also compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us. Let us run with patience the race that is set before us. And then verse 2, looking unto Jesus. And we're running this race. You've heard me make jokes about it before. I never did enjoy, as a teenager and playing sports, I didn't enjoy running. I enjoyed playing. I actually got into running when I got older. But when I was younger, if you see people, if they'll, I was really bad when I'd run. I'd stare at anybody else? I'd like stare at the ground and like watch my feet. But really, the best thing that you can do is to get your head up. One, you breathe better. And two, you can pick out a spot. And you can look forward to that thing you're running. And we all know that as Christians, there's times just because life and we get tired that we're running with our head down. And we're doing nothing but we're just looking and just watching our feet. If we'll get our heads up and look to the author and the finisher of our faith and we watch him, folks, there's no greater cheerleader than God himself. And it says we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. It's not just here, but there's a heavenly witness. There is a spiritual cloud of witnesses. There are angels. There are those in heaven. And I don't know exactly. Always say I don't know exactly what they can see, or I don't know how it all works. But I know one thing: there are people cheering us on. You can make it. You can make it. Keep the faith. And I'll leave you with this: to let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us. The more things that we obtain at times in life is the more things that we have to learn to lay aside. I've been talking to Haley quite a bit in the last few months about life and about money and about how she doesn't have any. And she's got, a year and a half left of college. And so, just trying to teach her some things, and I'll admit it because she's not here tonight, that it's hard because I like giving my kids things. I like taking care of them, But, slowly weaning her off those things. And it's not because we can't afford it or that I don't want to, but it's not going to do her any good to turn around and just one day say, well, there you are, figure it out. And so, helping her understand how to save money, how to pay her tithing. She still thinks she's somehow going to pay for Karen Peck. I mean, it's not adding up very fast. So little by little, I'm saying, okay, from now on, I'm not going to pay for this. You're going to pay for that. Okay. And then you're going to do this. And so the point is, she doesn't have anything. A few $100s saved here and there. And I've tried to explain to her, when me and Bethany got married, we didn't have anything. And our first house payment was $507, and that was with taxes and insurance. And I don't know why they ever gave us money. We were right in that housing bubble when they were just giving. I mean, we had no credit and no money, and they gave us a house loan. It wasn't a balloon payment or anything like that. That's the only way that we ever got a loan for a house, but $507 is the house, insurance, and taxes. And we could barely pay that. And 2 car payments, our bills, this and that. I made $8.51 an hour, and she made $6.96 an hour. I don't even know how we had money to buy bread. Well, when you don't have much, sometimes it's easy to say, I don't let those things beset me because what you got. But the longer we live, the more things we obtain, and then children come along, and eventually in-laws and grandchildren and things and stuff and home and money and this and all these other things come along. It is listen, I want to warn you, it is a constant battle to continually let go of the things that might hold us back. And not to allow those things to become so important to us that we somehow stumble, we get tripped up, or in what this says, it slows us down in the running of our race. The things that we leave behind, I hope to leave something to my kids, and that might help them in some way, but it won't really matter when I'm gone. If I got any bills, Noah can pay them. He'll have more money than his sister, I can guarantee you, because she'll spend all hers. If I've got money in the bank, or if I don't have a thing, it's not going to matter, because I'm going to leave it all behind. One of these days, we'll run the greatest race. And it's when we leave here, and we're ushered there. And you talk about laying aside every weight. There'll be nothing hold us back, nothing slow us down. We might as well practice for it now as we stand all over the building.